So I looked at Midori and I found it hard to believe that someone so quiet could have such a violent side to them as well. I turned to Marty and said, oops. Was Midori this kind of person? I don't think so. Don't you think she's just being that kind of strong-willed just because it's scary? Kiyo-san appeared there, rubbing her hands together, and looked up at Midori. I'm really sorry, but there are no more boats today, so I'm afraid you won't be able to go home. What? The boat to return home tomorrow evening will be here during the day tomorrow. So I'm afraid you're going to have to stay here until then. Midori-san looked at both Kiyo and Toshio with a blank expression, and then finally sat down. Toshio-san looked relieved. Please, everyone, begin eating. The soup will get cold, so please help yourself. Ah, that's hot. I tried tasting the soup, but it was so hot it burnt my tongue. The food was really good. I was surprised that Kiyo-san had such a skill at cooking. I looked around at the table and everybody else seemed to think the same. No one was talking, however. Perhaps because of the strange experience we had all just been through. Every once in a while someone would try to start a conversation, but the conversation wouldn't continue, and everyone would fall into silence once again. Making my way through the last meal in the course, I started to talk to Kobayashi-san. This is really good, isn't it? At least the food's really good, despite everything else that's happened. Kobayashi-san nodded. Yeah, I guess so. We finished our meals, and then Kiyo-san returned. Your rooms are ready. All your baggage has been delivered to all of your rooms. There's quite a few people staying here this evening, so I took the liberty of deciding rooms for everybody. Please, I'll show you the way. All of the guest rooms are on the second floor. All of the rooms face the central garden, and aside from the room at the edge of the eastern wing and the storage room at the edge of the western wing, did not have windows. It appears that the reason why there are no windows on any of the rooms here is so that they could prevent people from escaping the prison long ago. I heard that the reason why there are windows on the rooms of both ends of the building are that that's where the guards used to sleep. Kyo-san explained as she guided us to our rooms. There was one person assigned to each one of the rooms. My room was directly next to Murakami-san's room. And Mari's room was directly next to Midori-san's room. On the eastern wing of the building, all of the rooms had unit baths attached to them. It appeared that all of those rooms had been assigned to the females in the group. Is there any chance we could stay in the same room? I'd just really like to stay with my husband, Midori-san said to Kyo. I'm afraid, as you'll see, in each of the rooms there is only a single bed. Well, it goes without saying that, seeing as they had reformed an old prison, the rooms are going to be small. Some of the other people complained here and there, but everybody eventually decided to just go to their own rooms. I turned to Mari. It's a shame we're not in neighbouring rooms. Why's that? Our conversation finished there. The key locks on the doors were the type of locks that were locked. There were slide locks that could be locked from the inside. During the night, please ensure to slide your locks shut. And in the event that you have to leave your rooms during the night, please take your valuables with you. Oh, there's every chance that someone could come sneaking into my room during the night, so... Well, I'm going to leave my room open for 24 hours, just like a convenience store. Well, if you want to come visit, just let me know, Masaoko-san said. Masaoko-san, you've got such a sense of humor, Kanako-san said. Her eyes lit up. It didn't matter what this Masaoko-san person said. Everything just sounded super trite. The inside of the room was a lot cleaner than I thought it would be. It felt bigger than I thought it was going to be, perhaps because there was no unit bath. I guess it had been refurbished. There was a nice bed and a bedstand, which made it hard to believe that long ago this used to be a prison, a place where a prisoner would stay. I heard the howling of the wind. There were no windows in the room, so it was hard to tell, but just by hearing the sound of it, I could tell that the wind was pretty strong. Far off there was the sound of grinding metal. It seemed like the, how do you call that? The wave wall. There's like a wall that you put up to stop waves. Maybe like a tsunami prevention system kind of thing. I'm just looking at the word. Oh, the breakwater. Is that what you call it? Or maybe not. Break wall? Is that a word? Yeah, kind of like a wall that you shut to sort of like stop large waves from crashing on shore. It seemed like the wave gate had been shut. Being in a room by yourself meant that you didn't really have anything to do. I thought I might invite Mari to go for a walk outside the building again. Just then Mari showed up. Do you want to go downstairs? It seems like everyone's down there chatting. And here we can choose... Yeah, sure, let's go. Or maybe we should talk here, just the two of us. And I think we're going to go down and see what's going on. So we'll say, yeah, sure, let's go. We came all this way here, so we should probably go and hang out with everyone. Not to mention the fact that it's hard to relax in this room. I left the room together with Mari. Alright, everyone's here! Kayama-san said. It seemed like he was in a good mood. He'd already opened beers, and him and Kobayashi-san already appeared to be rather inebriated. Kanako-san was drinking coffee, but Natsumi-san appeared to be downing beers one after the other. There was no sign of Toshio-san and his wife Midori, or Keiko-san. According to Kanako-san, Keiko had an upset stomach, and so she decided to get some early rest. We sat down on the sofas. Mari had some coffee, and I had a beer. I wonder what he's thinking with that kind of act, this Abiko-san person, Mikimoto-san said, saying what everyone was thinking. He was talking about what had happened in the dining hall earlier. I think he's just playing around. He doesn't have any kind of reason to do anything like this. There's something weird about him, I think. If you go to all that trouble just to make a big fuss, you're not going to get any work in somewhere like Osaka, Kayama-san said. He was a little bit more rambunctious than usual, perhaps due to the alcohol. I've decided not to let it get to me either. It really doesn't matter to me whether Abiko-san is here or not, or whether he decides to show himself or not. In any case, we're going home tomorrow, Kobayashi-san said. Yeah, you're right. At the very least, he's letting us stay here, he's feeding us, he's letting us drink. No, what can you say? Natsumi-san said. However, the three of them seem to be harboring some different thoughts. I felt like maybe deep down they didn't really think like that. I couldn't help feeling that going to all the trouble of inviting all these people to this mansion and putting on such a strange act like that meant that there was some kind of reasoning behind the whole thing. I couldn't believe that these people weren't thinking the same way, that they weren't curious about what was going on. Toshio-san appeared in the waiting room by himself. How's Midori doing? Kobayashi-san asked. Toshio-san looked a little bit worried. She said she had a bit of a headache, so she was going to lie down for a bit. I'm sure it's nothing, though. I took a glance at Masaoka-san. He was looking a little bit strange. All the color had drained from his face. Is something wrong? I asked. And he forced a smile. No, it's fine. It's just I've got a little bit of claustrophobia. And, well, there isn't that many windows in this building. Are you going to be okay? Toshio-san asked. Yeah, it's no big deal. As long as I get drunk, it'll be fine. He took a big swig of his beer and then sat down next to Kanako-san. So, you're Kanako, right? You're just how they wrote you in that game. You're pretty cute, you know? I thought you might have been a model. You know, I've got a lot of connections in the industry, so if you ever want to make your debut as a model, I can put in a good word for you. Really? Yeah. You know, I'm friends with the editor for Non Non, and the vice editor for Anya as well. You know, I'll bet you'll be able to get on the cover of one of those magazines. Masako-san suddenly flew into flirtatious mode. Maybe he got a little bit scared if he wasn't talking the whole time. Non, is that sister magazine to Mimun? Wow. Yeah, I'd love to do something like that. Kanako-san's eyes were lit up. Alright, come on, enough of the bullshit, Mikimoto-san suddenly said. Bullshit? What are you talking about? I'm no bullshit artist. You know, I'm sure none of you guys know anything about the industry after all. You know, I'm a freelance cameraman, and I just so happen to have done work for Anya and Nonno as well. I know the editor as well. And come to think of it, I've never seen you around before, and he's never talked about someone like you. Well, you know, we're just friends, you know? Not that close friends, but acquaintances. And furthermore, you know, I'm sorry about mentioning this in front of you, Kanako, but I happen to know what kind of person makes the front covers of those magazines and who doesn't. And I just so happen to know that people like you often use their titles to seduce people like this. You know, you talk big, but you're just a cameraman at the end of the day. It's not like you do the kind of creative work that people like us do. You know, you might be looking at Kanako just on the surface level, but I know what's inside. I know the substance that she has inside of herself. I can see that. Are you saying that a cameraman doesn't do creative work? Just try saying that once more. I'll say it as many times as you like. A cameraman is just a guy that takes a photo somewhat well. Is it a kind of technician? And if they didn't receive orders from creators like us, they wouldn't be able to do the job that they're supposed to do. You know, maybe you're just falling in love with this person. Maybe you've got eyes for her. And now you're just trying to get in her pants. You bastard. Mikimoto-san sprung up, just as Toshio-san and myself had time to get in between them. Mikimoto-san, his fist raised, slowly began to lower his arm, relax his shoulders. Not one for violence, are you? I get it, he said, and sat down on the sofa. Masaoka-san stood up, wavering. He stole a quick glance in Mikimoto-san's direction. What? You want to kill me or something? Okay, go ahead. Stumbling, he left the waiting room. You have a choice to say he's drunk too much, and just to say that, not doing anything, or we could say like he seems quite drunk, and we can chase after him. But I don't think we need to spend any more time with him, so let's go with this. Oh, he's had a bit to drink, I said, dumbfounded. Mikimoto-san, you know, he said he had claustrophobia. Why do you have to be so mean? Kanako-san said, in Mikimoto-san's direction. And she left the waiting room, chasing after Masaoka-san. Mikimoto-san took a look around the room and said, you know, I just did it for her, but now she hates me. He continued drinking through all the beer. Alright, well, I think I'm going to go out for a bit of night fishing. I found a really good place at the lake earlier. Kobayashi-san stood up as if he couldn't take the tense atmosphere. Alright, well, maybe I might go for a bit of night scuba diving as well, Mikimoto-san said, finishing the last of his beer. I'm afraid that won't be possible, Kyo-san said hesitantly. No, it's fine, I'm not that drunk and I've got a flashlight after all, Mikimoto-san said, but Kyo-san shook her head. The night of the Kamaitachi has begun. I'm sorry, but I'm afraid we won't be able to open the door. The night of the Kamaitachi? Kamaitachi no Yoru? Well, that's the name of that game, isn't it? What's that got to do with anything? Natsumi-san said, looking suspiciously at Kyo-san. I can't say I know anything about this game, but in this area, every year, on the night of the 15th of August, a very strong wind blows. And that night of the 15th of August, particularly one that comes every 50 years, is an incredibly strong wind. A violent wind that we call the wind of the Kamaitachi. It's said that it brings famine and disaster. 15th of August. That's today, isn't it? There is a weasel, an Itachi by the name of Funoshin, that it said he rides the wind and brings with him sickness, death. So here, just as a side note, Funoshin, this name appeared in the song earlier from the boat driver. Here we have a couple of choices. We could say, I looked at Mikimoto-san and was surprised to realize that it was the same kind of story as he told me about the wind cutting sickle. I looked worryingly at Mari, who looked uneasy. Or C is, I slapped my knee as I realized that it reminded me of what is this, like a famine? Sickness? Ekibyo? Yeah, like pestilence. Pandemic. I remembered something to do with weasels and pestilence. I think, well, last time we went with this one, so I think I like that connection between the sickle and this, the Kamaitachi. So I think we're going to go with this one. I looked at Mikimoto-san. He looked up and quietly mouthed, wind-cutting sickle. It seemed like we were thinking the same thing. So you're talking about like a typhoon, like a hurricane? There's nothing to be afraid about, Kayama-san said, taking light of the situation. But the weather report said nothing about a typhoon or anything, said Natsumi-san. No, I'm afraid it's nothing like a typhoon. It's a very strong wind that blows in this area, only today. So you're saying that today is that? That's correct. Kyo-san nodded. It just so happens that this year is the 50th year since the last one. Tonight is the night that we call the night of the Kamaitachi. A night that happens once every 50 years. A sudden panic erupted amongst us. Come to mention it. Today is the night of the Kamaitachi. The boat driver had said something like that before. Right. So he was talking about this violent wind that blows through this area. Or that will blow through this area this evening. Don't give me such bullcrap, Murakami-san said, suddenly raising his voice. Well, then I invite you to see for yourself, Kyo-san said. And so we all got up from the sofa and went to the entrance of the building. Kyo-san opened the door ever so slightly, and suddenly a wind with incredible force started to blow through the doors. Do you see the wind and the rain? There's no way we could leave this building tonight. The break wall down at the shore has been closed. I do apologize, but I'm going to have to shut this entrance. We watched as Kyo-san closed the shutters on the entrance door and locked it with a key. Right, so we're trapped in this building. And it's only 8 PM. Toshio-san said, sighing. Kayam-san turned to Kyo-san and asked, "Now, don't tell me that you believe in some fancy tale about an evil god riding the wind and blasting through this island, do you?" Kyo-san turned her head to the side. Everybody that lives in this area closes their doors and their windows and puts up charms to prevent evil on this night every 50 years. I have to say that someone as old as me can't so easily throw out such traditions. "Are we going to be okay in this building?" Murakami-san said, his face turning blue. In the last one, 50 years ago, was there anything like roofs blowing off, or places flooding, or people dying, or anything like that? Well, I can't say for certain, because 50 years ago this island was unmanned. There was nobody here. God damn it, what is this Abiko-san thinking? Murakami-san said, his voice full of anger. Why did he invite us here of all days, knowing that there'd be this terrible violent wind blowing through? There's got to be something wrong with him. Kobayashi-san, Toshio-san, and Kayama-san all exchanged similar opinions. I also happen to think that it was strange, but thinking about it, the only people that know about this legend are people from around the area. And so I would say that perhaps Abiko-san doesn't know about the tradition. Kyo-san, did you know that today was that night of the Kamaitachi? Why didn't you tell us? Toshio-san asked. She squirmed. Well, nobody asked. I'm terribly sorry. And the person that made your bookings was Abiko-san, so I'm afraid I don't know anything. Nothing. You don't know anything, do you? Is that all you can say? If the owner starts making invitations for people on a day where there's going to be incredibly strong wind and rain, don't you think you would stop him? Kyo-san looked as if she was about to burst into tears and simply repeated her apology. She left the lobby. At around 10:30 p.m, we all separated. What do you want to do? Should we talk in one of our rooms? I'm sorry, Toru. I'm not feeling all that well. I might just go to sleep. Marty's face was a little pale. Are you okay? I saw her off to her room, and then went back to my own. It was strange to think that this room used to be occupied by a prisoner. The stains on the walls started to look like old blood from prisoners that had undergone torture. I didn't tell Marty, but I didn't really feel all that well either. My stomach felt a bit strange and my head hurt. Maybe I drank too much. The sound of the roaring wind outside, beating on the walls, started to get louder. It was loud enough to want to block your ears. So here we can decide to have another beer to help us sleep, or just try to sleep away the ill feeling that we have. I think we'll go with this one. This one last time as well. No, if I drink too much, I'll have to go to the bathroom during the night. So I decided to get some sleep. I had a nightmare that night. The voice sounded like it was coming from a long way away, and at the same time from right next to my ears as well. Somebody's calling me. It's not Mari. Don't you know who I am? I know who you are. I know. Just as I felt a scream escape my lungs, I woke from the nightmare. I felt my heart beating rapidly. I wonder what time it was. I looked at my watch. It was 3 AM. I only slept 4 hours. My bed was drenched with sweat. I wiped it all off with my hands. My head felt heavy, and there was something strange about my throat. It was dry. I wanted to take a shower, but there was no bathroom in the room. The wind and the rain had weakened significantly. There was almost no sound of the wind blowing anymore. I went out into the corridor to check on outside. There was dim lighting throughout the corridor. I looked up and down the hall, but there was no one around. It was terribly quiet. I walked slowly so as not to wake anyone up with my footsteps. Every room was silent. There wasn't a sound anywhere. It almost felt as if there was no one else staying here besides myself. I heard the door of one of the rooms open. I felt my body shake. Oh, I readied myself. Ah, morning. What are you up to? Kobayashi-san. It was Kobayashi-san. It seems like the wind and the rain had stopped, so I went to go check. But I can't. What about you, Kobayashi-san? I'm just going to the bathroom. Just then. What was that voice just now? I shook my head at Kobayashi-san. Who knows? It came from that way. Let's go check. We ran down to the end of the corridor. I ran to Mari's room first. It was locked from the inside, so we couldn't open it from the outside. I knocked on the door. Marty, are you awake? What's going on? Did something happen? Did you hear that scream just now? I was fast asleep. There was this awful scream just now. I'm sure something's happened. Kobayashi-san looked troubled. Midori's room. She won't respond no matter how many times I knock. I wonder what's going on. Maybe we should call Kyo-san. Mari said, and I nodded. Alright, I'll go and get her, Mari said, and ran down the corridor. Midori? Midori! Are you there? I took Kobayashi-san's place at Midori's door and knocked as hard as I could. There was no response. Huh? Kobayashi-san grabbed something from the bottom of from the floor. It was an earring. This is Kaneko's, I think. It looked familiar to me. I was sure that Kaneko was wearing a pearl earring. After a short while, Mari and Kyo-san appeared. Has something happened? Kyo-san was stifling a yawn. I do apologize for waking you in the middle of the night. Mari apologized. Ah, I see. A scream, was it? Okay. Kyo-san rubbed her eyes. Are you sure it wasn't the sound of the wind? You know, when I'm here by myself, I also sometimes hear sounds that sound like screams. More often than not, it's the sound of the wind, or the trees, or the building itself. No, there's no doubting it. That was definitely a human voice. And it felt real. Like they were really in trouble, Kobayashi-san said. Kubota-san, I'm opening the door. Are you alright? Kyo-san said, as she began to push on the door. But it didn't open. It was locked from the inside. Midori-san, open it, please. I once again raised my voice and called out for Midori. There was no response. Things only got noisier, but nothing happened. Getting Kyo-san's approval, Kobayashi-san and myself started to ram the door with our bodies. Once, twice, and on the third time, the lock broke and the door opened. It was pitch black inside the room. Kyo-san entered first and turned on the switch to the lights. But the lights didn't turn on. She turned on a flashlight. Wah! Kyo-san screamed in disgust and fell on her rear. As the light shone gently on her face, I watched her strange expression. I took the flashlight from Kyo-san and lit it around the room. You could could tell they were deceased upon first glance. But it wasn't Midori-san. It was Masaoka-san. There was pools of blood seeping out from a deep wound in his throat. Oh, Kobayashi-san groaned in the corridor. I couldn't believe it. Masaoka-san was alive merely hours earlier. Moving around, talking, breathing. Struggling to keep down the bile that was rising my throat, I left the room to get some air and went to the nearest window I could find. There was no lock on the window and it opened without trouble. A warm, wet wind started to blow inside. The rain had stopped. There was no moon in the sky. And the air felt like a sauna. But I couldn't see anything outside. I found the darkness a little bit too scary to bear, so I closed the window. I trod on something and fell over. Are you okay? Kobayashi-san helped me up. I looked around at my feet. The floor was wet. My hand touched something gross. And when I shone the light of the flashlight upon it, I saw a crab, or the body of one. It had been crushed somehow, and green-coloured guts were spilling out the back of it. Perhaps it had climbed up from the centre garden. Kobayashi-san and I returned to where Kyo-san was, lifted her up on our shoulders, and took her out of the room. Hey, what's going on? Mari asked for an explanation. I didn't know what to tell her. I looked to Kobayashi-san for help. Kobayashi-san. All he did was sigh, and then said to Mari, "Just let everyone know. There's been a murder." It still wasn't daybreak, but we ran around, waking everyone up. As I knocked on Kaneko-san's door, there was a response straight away. She seemed disturbed at my sudden appearance, but when I told her that Masaoka-san had been killed, she looked like she was about to faint. As I looked at Keiko-san, I found myself at a loss for words. Her face was swollen and bright red. It appeared she'd been crying. Kaneko-san told me to wait, and then left her room straight after. It seemed like she'd wiped her face with a towel, but you could still tell that she had been crying. There was no response from Natsumi-san's room. I woke Kayama-san first, and let him knock the door. But it was just then that Natsumi-san came walking down the corridor. Where have you been? Kayama-san said in Natsumi-san's direction. I was in the bathroom. I've been having terrible indigestion lately, you know. So, just for a bit of a change of scenery, I went down to the first floor bathroom and... Heading around to the west wing of the building, I found Kobayashi-san waking Toshio-san. Toshio-san, is Midori-san anywhere? Yeah, she's in the next room. Masaoka-san said that he didn't want to sleep in a room without a window, so they swapped. What? We looked at each other. Yeah, he was saying he gets a bit weird because of his claustrophobia. It just so happened that Midori's room and his room were close to each other, so it worked out well. But what exactly is going on? To tell you the truth, Masako-san has... I told him about what had happened to Masaoka-san. And Toshio-san ran to Midori's room to wake her up. What's going on? Why is everything so noisy? Murakami-san poked his head into the corridor to see what was going on. Mikimoto-san, however, wasn't in his room. It wasn't locked, so I opened the door, but there was nothing inside. It couldn't be that Mikimoto-san was the murderer. I swallowed hard. There was that possibility. Just hours earlier, they had fought. And Mikimoto-san said that he would kill Masaoka-san. I didn't think he was serious, but perhaps he got too drunk and something happened. Mikimoto-san! I shouted as loud as I could. As I did, I heard the door of the room next to Mikimoto-san's room open. It looked like no one was staying in there. Yeah, what's up? It was Mikimoto-san. His hair was a mess, and he looked a little pale. What are you doing here? I don't know. I was a little drunk, and I went to the toilet, and then I guess I got the wrong room, Mikimoto-san said, scratching his hair with his hands. He let out a big yawn. As I told him what had happened to Masaoka-san, his expression changed. You serious? As we gathered in the waiting room, Kobayashi-san explained what had happened, one after the other. If you think I'm lying, go up to the second floor and check with your own eyes. I guess this isn't some kind of bad joke or anything, is it? Natsumi-san said. This is some kind of like sick ghost story, the kind of which you might tell at a school trip or something, only to be laughed at afterwards. She just cut it out right now. As if anyone could be bothered to do something like that, I thought. Mari started to speak, but then closed her mouth straight after. What's up? No, it's nothing, she said. She looked a little pale. Come on, you can't just start speaking and then not finish what you were going to say. Well, it might just be a coincidence, but Mari-san began. That song, that children's song that we heard. Huh? You don't remember? The boat captain, the one that he sang for us. Those lyrics. Yeah, if I remember rightly. I felt a shiver run through my body. So here we're back looking at the lyrics of this children's song from the island. Shintaro from the village of insects. Sokomushimura. Sokomushimura village. There was a person called Shintaro, apparently. He's crying, saying that something hurts. And if you ask Kaniko, the crab child the crab, if you ask the crab what is he saying hurts, he said that an evil weasel called Funoshin cut his throat and now he can't talk, and that's why he's crying. So that's what this page of lyrics is telling us. So the person that died was Masaoka Shintaro. Aha. Shintaro and Shintaro. It's the same name. And in the song, this Shintaro gets his throat cut by the weasel, the Itachi. That corpse looked like it had been... its throat had been cut by something as well. Not to mention that crab. It was too much of a coincidence. Everyone was silent, as if they were all thinking the same thing. Well, in any case, we need to let the police know, Mikimoto-san said and stood up. Toshio-san picked up the black telephone in the lobby and put it to his ears. That's odd, he said, and tried pressing on the telephone hook as many times as he could. There's no sound. Is it broken or something? Mikimoto-san tried himself instead of Toshio-san. Even if the phone lines are in disarray because of the wind, there should at least be some kind of sound. Maybe the phone line's cut somewhere. Mikimoto-san said to Kyo-san, after not having spoken the entire time, "Is there any other phones in this building?" he asked Kyo-san. "I'm afraid this is the only one," she said. It appeared she'd gotten quite the shock, having seen Masaoka-san earlier, but she managed to say just that. As we told everyone that the phone lines weren't going through, everybody let out a sigh. We tried our mobile phones as well, but there was no signal all the way out in this lonely, isolated island. The ship home wouldn't arrive until evening today. We couldn't get through to anyone on the phone. We were completely alone, trapped on the island. Kaneko-san started to cry. I want to go home. I don't want to be here anymore. Keiko-san, looking at Kaneko-san, also started to cry. Now, get a hold of yourselves. We're just going to have to be patient until this evening. Toshio-san attempted to comfort the two women, but Mikimoto-san laughed through his nose. That's easier said than done. There's no way I can relax in this kind of situation. Well, I guess so, but there's no use frightening these women, you know? What are you talking about, frightening people? Masaoka-san died, didn't he? It wasn't that he just passed away. He was killed. I let out a gasp. Someone had been killed. In other words, there was a murderer amongst us. The culprit that had murdered Masaoka-san could be hiding out somewhere around the building. Toshio-san turned to Keiko-san and Kaneko-san and said, "Don't worry, as long as there's all of us here, we'll be able to protect ourselves from any kind of murderer." I wonder if that's true. I mean, think about it. Who do you think killed this Masaoka-san? This mansion is a closed environment. The shutter on the door in the entrance lobby was shut, and it was locked as well. In other words, it would have been impossible to get into the building from outside. Well, that's not entirely true. What about the windows that were on the room where the murder happened? Kobayashi-san said. That window was on the second floor. And remember how there was a spike pit just below the window? And unless the murderer had wings or something, there was no way they would have been able to get in through the window and then leave again. Mikimoto-san laughed. Look, what I want to say is, the murderer didn't come in from the outside. In other words, someone in this group, someone here, killed him. I think it's a little bit early to say something like that. Why don't we check the building and you know, check it thoroughly to see if there's anyone else here? Well, it's a huge building, and even if we search it from corner to corner, Kaneko-san started saying. I'll help, Kiyo-san said. I'm sure everyone isn't that familiar with this place. If I show everyone around, I'm sure we'll be able to search the entire premises thoroughly. Thinking that it would have been dangerous if the murderer was hiding out somewhere, we started to form a search party that was made up of me, Kayama-san, Toshio-san, and Mikimoto-san. All of the women of the group stayed behind to guard the waiting room. I asked Kyo-san if there was anything we could use as weapons, and she said, I don't think there's anything terribly suitable. And so we decided to arm ourselves with mops. It was better than nothing. I said, alright everyone, shall we go? Despite it being early morning, the inside of the mansion was terribly dark, and the air felt dead. On the first floor, aside from Kyo-san's room, almost all of the rooms were empty. We decided to investigate each one of the rooms that were lining the hallways. First, the dining hall. Then, registration, the front desk. The bathrooms. It appeared no one was hiding out in any of these rooms. This is my private room, but just to be sure, Kyo-san said and opened the door. Please, take a look inside. There were 2 rooms connected to each other. It was quite large. There was a tatami room at the edge of the room. There was no smell of mold like in some of the other rooms. It smelled like someone had been living here. Toshio-san checked the wardrobes and the dresses, but all there was clothes and other items, and that was it. Nobody was hiding out. I felt a little relieved, but at the same time somewhat disappointed as we left Kyo-san's room. In the kitchen, there was a large fridge that was somewhat at odds with the older facade of the building. There was also an electronic microwave on top of the steel kitchen table in the middle of the room. It was the type of kitchen that you might see at a restaurant. At the other side of the room, there was a brick oven and a pump-style well. It seemed to be reminiscent of the older days. Looking around the room, it seemed like there was nowhere that anyone could hide in here. At the very end of the kitchen, there was a small storage space. There was an old wooden shelf and ducts. Ducts? What is a duct? I don't know what these words are. Duct just means duct. Ducts and switchboard. There were ducts and a switchboard jutting off the wall. There were a lot of tools scattered around, but they were all gathering dust. I assumed that hadn't been used for many years. What about these stairs? Toshio-san said. That's the entrance to the basement room. Well, what's down there? Well, there's the water tank and the boiler system. Would you like to take a look? I suppose we'd better, I said. We all descended the stairs, which were somewhat slippery due to the water. Oh. At the end of the stairs, there was a large steel door. Or maybe that's iron. Tetsu. Iron? Yeah, an iron door wrapped in strong chains with a great steel lock on it. As we opened the door, a thick wave of air rushed forward. We entered the basement room. We could see the large body of the water tank and the water pipes leading to it. I followed the pipes with my eyes to see where they led. They disappeared off into the corner of the room. Off in that corner, there was a sizable iron door that looked about as big enough to fit a human, an adult person. This door also had a great steel lock on it, but it wasn't locked. I opened the steel door, but I was surprised to find that it wasn't as wide as I thought it was inside. It wasn't the size that someone could hide safely in there. There was only pipes and bulbs inside. Kyo-san, what is this? I asked. What's that? Pen. Oh. Valves, not bulbs. Kyo-san said, I guess there's some kind of valves, but I don't know too much about them. In any case, in the areas around the boiler and the water tank and the freezing system, there was nowhere where someone could have been hiding out. Okay, I think we're done here. Let's go to the next place, Kayama-san said. We headed towards the second floor. There were in total 19 guest rooms, including the empty rooms, as well as the storage room. We started with where the murder took place. None of us felt comfortable with that room, but there was no helping it. We had to start somewhere. We tried as hard as possible not to look at Masaoka-san's corpse, holding our noses as we searched the room. It was clear that the murderer hadn't run into the corridor, which left only this window as the only possibility. I stuck my face out the window. There was a warm, wet wind that was blowing outside. My eyes rested on the wind sickles that were set up on the outside of the window. On both sides of the window. Mikimoto-san! Quick, this... What? What is it, all of a sudden? Blood. I remembered what Mikimoto-san had said yesterday. Sometimes, when these violent winds blow, you find blood on these sickles. It's said that it's the blood from the god that rides that wind. So you're telling me that this weasel, this Funoshing weasel guy, came here last night? Mikimoto-san said with a sly smile on his face. As we looked down below the window, we saw the spike pit on the ground. It didn't matter how you jumped out of the window. There was no escaping those spikes at the bottom. I looked up. The room that was directly facing would have been the storage room, I assumed. Wait a second. I tried to picture the culprit escaping from this room. Here we can say maybe he left through the window and climbed up onto the roof. Or what if he connected the two windows with a rope? They both seem pretty plausible. I don't know about the rope though. I don't think there's anything... I don't know. I guess if that's a storage room, maybe there's ropes in there, but I don't know. I don't know how... the roof seems more plausible a little bit, I think. Maybe I'm just going to save it here. Should we go to the roof first, I guess? I'm kind of interested about the rope as well, though. Okay, let's try the roof. I wondered, what if the culprit escaped through the window and climbed up onto the roof? Perhaps then they went around the C-shaped roof of the building and entered through the window into the storage room. That was it. Excited, I turned to Mikimoto-san and Toshio-san and told them my idea. No, that's no good, Toshio-san said. Why not? There's the spike pit below the window and, well, the window on the other side is too far away. And we were in the corridor as well. That only leaves the roof. The roof is pretty sloped, you know. I imagine it'd be pretty hard to climb up from the window. Even if you manage to get up, you just slip off straight away. But let's say they got up onto the roof and hid there for a while, and after we left the room, they climbed back in, returned to the room, and then just went back out into the corridor. Well, there's no guarantee that you or Kobayashi-san would have left the room anyway. As long as there's someone in the room or keeping a lookout in the corridor, you'd have to stay on the roof the whole time. I don't think they would have taken a risk like that. I thought it was a good idea, but I was disappointed. So yeah, we'll see where this route takes us, but we might return to that point and just see the other option and see if that leads us anywhere else. I mean, there was no way of knowing that, like, when we had to choose it, you know. That's, aside from that, there was nothing else suspicious in the room. Alright, I guess that's it, Kayama-san started saying. Wait a second. He bent down and picked something up from below the bed. What's the matter? No, it's nothing. It's just a bit of rubbish. We continued the investigation in Mari's room next door, and the other rooms as well. The guest rooms were quite narrow, quite cramped, so there was no real way for anyone to hide in any of the rooms. There was nothing that really stood in the way of our investigation. Last was the storage space. That bit with Kayama-san and what he picked up was a bit sus. I don't know what that was. Ooh. In the storage room, there were human-sized models. And what is that? Done Tall Day? Is that like a dissection? Done Tall Day. Ooh, no, that's a guillotine. Oh god. There were human models of all sizes and a guillotine in the storage room. It appeared to be some kind of torture devices. There was knight's armor with a sword and a kind of mummified sculpture where it was impossible to tell whether it was a primate or a human. Oh god, animal fetuses soaked in, is that formaldehyde? Formalin, I don't know what it is. What on earth is this room? I found myself whispering. It's quite unsettling, isn't it? Kyo-san said. I too get the shakes when I look in here. Back in the Meiji period, the Kishizaru clan, the head of the Kishizaru clan, collected all these, with all the money that they had. There's nowhere to put them throughout the mansion, so they've just all been left in here. Is that so? I've heard that all these different types of torture devices were used on prisoners that objected to the conditions here at the prison. It seemed like the owner of this, the head of this Kishizaru clan, was quite the odd person. I took a look at some of the grotesque devices and figures in the room. I heard a kind of splashing sound from my feet. There was a pool of water on the ground, below the window. Looks like the rain got in, Kayama-san said. "12 rooms used as guest rooms. And 7 empty rooms plus the storage space at the end of the building. It took us about 30 minutes to search all the rooms on the second floor. And the conclusion? There was no murder type person in the on the floor. In other words, there was no one hiding out on either the first or second floors of the building. As we reported to the rest of the group in the waiting room, Everybody sighed, as if somewhat relieved. Well, there's no giving up just yet. I guess next we should check whether the culprit escaped outside or not. But how on earth? Natsumi-san started saying. Well, we just check if there's any footsteps or foot markings anywhere outside. Everybody agreed with what I was saying. I had made sure that when the murder occurred, the rain had stopped. I knew that the rain had stopped when the murder occurred. In other words, if the murderer had escaped from the building, there was no doubt that there'd be foot markings left somewhere. Track marks, I guess. Alright, let me go with you. I need some air anyway. So Kobayashi-san, Mikimoto-san, and myself, the three of us decided to go outside and check. We left through the front entrance. As a result of the wind and the rain the previous evening, the surface of the central garden was all covered in water. It was the perfect conditions to cover tracks. But despite looking carefully around the area of the front entrance, there was nothing that looked like footsteps or markings anywhere. Here and there around the central garden, there were fishes of all sizes, flapping around on the ground. Fish names are difficult. Namazu. Catfish. Catfish. There were several catfish on the ground around the garden, showing their whiskers and their white bellies as they flapped on the ground. I thought maybe they had flown in from the sea. I guess the wind was really strong last night. We took a look at the spike pit underneath the window to the room where the murder had happened. There was no sign that anything had fallen from the window. In any case, if someone had fallen from the window, they would have been impaled on these spikes to the ground. Looking up at the walls around the window, there was only the old stains left from the years this building had endured. There were no signs of anyone having climbed down from the window. Maybe they could have used a ladder or something, Kobayashi-san started whispering. Come to mention it, at the end of the corridor, there was a ladder. Here we can choose to try the ladder, or that the ladder was covered in dust, so there was no way it would have been used during the storm. Well, both of these seem plausible. I mean, I do kind of want to try it. But no, I don't know. It's weird. Should we try it? The letter? Yeah, that's right. What the heck? I thought it was worth trying a ladder, at least. A ladder? Come to mention that there was a ladder in the first floor storage. Should we go check it out? Yeah, let's give it a try. Kobayashi-san nodded. I hurried back into the building and headed to the storage space. As I came nearer the kitchen, I started to smell the smell of consomme soup. It seemed like Kyo-san had started preparing for breakfast. We could say I didn't have time to go check it out. I didn't have time for breakfast and I went straight to the storage, or I can't stand it. And we can smell the smell, or we can go to the kitchen and check what kind of food it is. I guess, yeah, we probably shouldn't check it out right now. I'm just going to keep going to the storage space. There was no time for that. So I withstood the smell and went straight to the storage. There it is. Just as I thought, there was a stainless steel ladder propped up against the wall. I carried it on my shoulders back out into the central garden, where Mikimoto-san and Kobayashi-san were waiting. It was longer than I thought. This ladder's covered in dust, Kobayashi-san said as he wiped the dust clean. Look, my hand's black with dust. Which means the ladder's out, I guess, Mikimoto-san said, rubbing his beard. If the culprit used this ladder during the storm like that last night, there's no way there'd be this much dust left on it. I guess so. We decided to look elsewhere. Well, at least we got the soup thing. Maybe that'll be a hint in the future. The great iron door at the entrance was still closed. What is that? Kannukiana. The lock? Kannuki. Yeah, the bolt. The bolt that was locking the door across both sides of the gate was tied together with a new chain. There's no way anyone could have escaped through here. It was clear. And there were no footsteps either. We took a look around the inside of the walls. There were no traces anywhere. I tripped on something. As I looked at my feet, I saw a... how do you call that? A roof tile. I saw a roof tile had fallen on the ground. I guessed that it had been blown off during the storm last night. Huh. That's... We found a gate around the other side of the mansion. It was around the same size as the iron gate at the entrance. This one was iron as well, and it had a big lock around it. If they had escaped through here, there was no way it would have a lock on it. In any case, we searched the inside walls, every nook and cranny, but found nothing resembling foot markings. Back in the awaiting room, Mikimoto-san started to speak. So, Here's what we found. There's no one else in this building besides us. There's no sign that anyone came inside from the outside. And there's no sign that they escaped either. This means that the murder could not have been done by a third party. He finished his point with one last line. The person that killed Masako-san is amongst us. A thick silence filled the air of the waiting room. The culprit is one of us. I could say, I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. Was the person that killed Masako-san really one of us? Were they really in this room? As if answering my question, Mikimoto-san continued speaking. To make matters worse, none of us have an alibi. In other words, everybody here is an equal suspect. Now, just wait a minute, I said. What do you mean no one has an alibi? When we woke everyone up this morning, everybody was in their rooms by themselves. So, wouldn't it be better to say that everybody has an alibi? What you mean by alibi here is what everybody was doing when that scream was heard. Right? But you can't say that you saw Masaoka-san as he screamed, right? In any case, Kobayashi-san and myself heard a scream. Doesn't that exclude us from being suspects? I'm afraid we can't exclude you just yet. Mikimoto-san wore a strange, evil kind of smile on his face. You know, they sometimes say that the person that discovers the body is the most suspect. He then turned to Kobayashi-san. Kobayashi-san, you and Toru, which one of you entered the corridor first? Well, if I remember rightly, when I went to the bathroom, I went out into the corridor and there was Toru. Mikimoto-san nodded. Kobayashi-san, are you sure that the scream that you heard was from the room at the very end of the hallway? What do you mean? Well, think about it this way. What if Masaoka-san was already dead at the time you went into the corridor? Perhaps it was Toru-kun that killed him. What are you talking about? So then that scream was... I felt myself rising up off the sofa, but Mikimoto-san stopped me with his hand and said, so perhaps that scream was... Marty. in the next room. But I didn't scream, Marty said. Mikimoto-san just smiled and said, well, you know, it's kind of natural for two lovers to be in cohorts with murder and that kind of thing, you know? Don't be ridiculous. Well, I did feel like it was from the room at the end of the corridor, but I couldn't be sure which room it came from. I suppose it was possible that it was the third or the fourth room along from the end room. Kobayashi-san crossed his arms. That makes sense. That was initially why I woke Marty first, but... So, what you're saying is, it is possible that the scream was heard from the second room along, Marty's room. I was taken aback. You can tell who it is from their voice. There's no way I would have mistaken Marty's voice for Masaoka-san's voice. In any case, the doors were locked from the inside. How would anyone get inside? But the only people that know that are you and Kobayashi-san. Well, Kyo-san knows this too. But to be more specific, Kyo-san heard you say that it was locked, but she wasn't able to check whether it was locked herself. This is ridiculous. Well, Kyo-san started to speak. Well, to be honest, I did check that the door was locked. Are you certain about that? Yes, I'm sure the door was locked. Kyo-san looked frightened at Mikimoto-san's strange expression. Now look, please, let's just get a hold of ourselves, I said, turning to Mikimoto-san. You need to tell me why you think I'm the culprit. If I was the culprit, why would I make sure everyone heard us scream without waking everyone up and then return to my room and sleep until the morning? Oh, actually, no, hang on. Let me just redo that. If I was the culprit, I wouldn't... how would you say this? If I was the culprit, I wouldn't make sure anyone heard any screams. I wouldn't wake anyone up. I just return to my room and sleep until morning. That's right. I knew that from the start. I just wanted to make sure that you knew that you were a suspect as well. I didn't like the way you said that you were the only one that wasn't a suspect. Mikimoto-san squinted. And now, lo and behold, you're like the rest of us, another suspect. Kyo-san prepared breakfast for us, but not everyone showed up. Aside from Mari and myself, the only people that showed up were Kobayashi-san, Murakami-san, Keiko-san and Kanako-san. The four of us simply sat together, barely touching our meals. What? Kanako-san suddenly stood up, facing Kobayashi-san. I'd never go somewhere like that. Stop being so weird. No, I was just... I mean, we found your earring in Masako-san's room, and so I wanted to give it back to you. Well, that's like saying that I killed him. There's no way. Murakami-san inserted himself into the conversation. So why was her earring on the floor then? It's not like it would have walked there itself. How about you give us an explanation right here and now? An explanation? Kanako-san was suddenly quiet. Sure, I'll give you an explanation. I give up. This is stupid. I'm going back to my room. Kanako, wait. Keiko-san ran after her. It was too difficult to eat, let alone have a conversation in this atmosphere. And eventually Murakami-san and Kobayashi-san left the dining hall. I turned to Mari and said, don't you find Kanako-san's reaction weird? Or isn't it weird that Mikimoto-san isn't at breakfast? I am curious about Kanako-san. I think this is probably like she was with Masaoka-san before his death, but I don't think she would have killed him. Maybe that's why she doesn't want to mention. Didn't you think Kanako-san's reaction was a little weird? I wondered why she'd refused to explain about the earring. Toru, don't tell me you think she's the culprit? No, it's not that. Whether she killed him or not is beside the point. Before the incident, there was a possibility that she would have met up with Masaoka-san, right? I'm sure there's some kind of hint waiting there. Well, in any case, I don't think she'd really be keen to talk to you about it. Well, maybe she was just nervous about talking about it in front of everyone. Perhaps if the two of us went, she'd be able to tell us. We left the dining hall and headed to Kanako-san's room. As we climbed up the stairs to the second floor, Natsumi-san came down from the top floor. Where are you off to, Natsumi-san? Toilet, she said, and climbed down the stairs. It seemed like she was feeling a lot better than last night. Kanako-san, are you in there? I left a little bit of room for her to respond. Who is it? It's Toru. I'm with Mari as well. I chose my words carefully. If you don't mind, do you think we could talk for a bit? What's there to talk about? I heard Kaneko-san speak from just beyond the door. Look, I guess you're just going to think that I killed him, right? There's nothing to talk about. Go back to your room. No, it's just that... At a loss for words, I turned to Mari for help. Kaneko-san, let me be honest, alright? We came to ask about the earring. But that doesn't exactly mean that you're the killer. Mari's tone and voice was incredibly bright. If we tried to interrogate her, it might have the opposite effect. I know that you haven't slept very much and that we haven't found the person that did this, but I understand how you feel. I think everyone feels the same way. My uncle, Murakami-san, I don't think they all really think that you're the culprit. They just don't know what's real, and they feel uneasy about it. Mari was able to say exactly what I had wanted to say. So I don't think you should be that worried about it. Mari finished there and waited for Kaneko-san's response, but there was none from within. It's fine. If you feel like you want to talk at any point, just let me know. Maybe we can talk over tea or coffee or something. The conversation ended there, and we turned around to go back down the corridor. And just then behind us, the sound of the door opening. As we turned around, Kaneko-san had poked her face out of the door. She brushed her hair out of her eyes and said, "Come on then. You stay here, Toru, okay?" Mari said. "Sure. I'll be waiting." It seemed like she found it easy to talk to Mari. Maybe there was something only the two of us could... Maybe it was something only the two of us could have understood. Kaneko-san invited Mari into her room. Kaneko-san bowed slightly to me and then closed the door. Five and then 10 minutes passed. I heard my stomach grumble. But I just couldn't bring myself to eat anything. But I figured maybe I ought to eat something. I thought Mari and Kaneko-san were probably hungry as well, so I headed to the kitchen. Just then, when I made it into the kitchen, I felt a strange atmosphere and stopped walking. Again. This is the second time I smelt the scent since I came to the mansion. It was a thick smell, like the smell of blood. I drew closer to the door. Just then something gripped around my throat. Who is it? It gripped me with a terrifying force. I couldn't say anything. I tried to tear the thing that was wrapped around my neck off me as hard as I could, but all I could get was brown hair. I felt like I had seen the colour of this hair somewhere before. Natsumi? I felt darkness envelop me. I felt myself being drawn into a deep well of darkness. The power left my body. And then the pain. The end.